everyone, this is the second movie for Excel Chapter 3, Pause and Practice number 3. We just have really two more charts and the spark lines to get done, but I didn't really want to rush through it on the last movie because I do want to talk about this combo chart a little bit. So this is, in this situation, we're going to chart sales revenue. So this total revenue here, and then we're also going to chart the room and cabin rentals, right? So we want to put this on the same chart. It'll have the same months, and we want to plot both of these elements, the room and the total. Well, in order to do that and not have the chart be all skewed, you need to do a combo chart where you have two axes, because the upper limits, of course, are very different for the total, because it's all of them, and then just this single line item of the room and cabin rental. So that would be a really good example of why you might use a combo chart, right? When you have things that have a different scale. So you would look at that upper limit. So here September is 85, but the upper limit here is 170. So these, if you did like one of these charts, you have tiny little bars for room and cabin rental, right? So now what is going to happen, it's going to overlay, and you're going to be able to see if there's a trend between room and cabin rentals and then your overall revenue, which of course there probably will be. So let's go ahead and select this data. So we're going to select A4. We're going to include that word revenue, A4 through G5. So we're going to do revenue categories for room and rental for all the months. Then I need to come down here and get this total revenue. So I'm going to press that control key, and I'm going to come down and select total revenue and select the associated. So the label and each of the month's values. So now we're going to insert a chart just like we would any other chart. And if you're not seeing it here, you can certainly go to this, but I'm seeing it right here. It's got the bars and it's got the line. That's a combo chart. So we're going to pick that. And the kind of combo chart that we're going to do is a clustered column line on secondary axis. So if I just put my cursor over here, and I can't move my cursor, I wish you could see me pointing, but you see there's a left and a right axis. One goes up to 100,000 and one goes up to 250, right? So the total revenue, which is the orange line, is using the scale on the right, the one that goes up to 250,000. The bars, which is the room and cabin rental, is using the 100,000 because that was the first one we selected. So let's go ahead and click on that, and then we're going to put that in its own chart. So once you select it, we're going to move it, or we're going to put it in its own sheet, and it's going to be called a combo chart, right? So now that chart is in its own sheet, and now I'm just going to look at it for a minute so you can see as the room and cabin rental goes up and down, the revenue for the cabin rental, so does the trend for the overall income, which would make sense because the room and cabin is probably the largest. It's the largest, let's go back here and look. It's the largest element that makes up the revenue. So that makes sense that it follows that same pattern, okay? But there might be things where it doesn't, you know, that the bar isn't a reflection, isn't reflected accurately in the total, right? So that's one of the reasons that you might want to see this. Okay, so let's start modifying it. First thing, we're going to do this chart title. So we're going to select it, and then 1, 2, 3, triple click it, and we're going to put second and third quarters. We're going to hit enter. Comparison of rentals and total revenue. Comparison of rentals and total revenue. Okay. We're going to click off of that. Second and third quarters comparison. Okay, good. So we want to, on the chart styles, we're going to pick this style 6. It's going to do the black background. They seem to really like that in this book. So now we have, it does really show up the orange quite well. I think that's it for this. Let's do a save. Okay, so that's two different axes, right? So this is a combo chart. One element uses the left, one element uses the right. Okay, let's go back. This time we're going to go to the revenue. And this chart we're going to do now is the sunburst. So part of doing the sunburst is planning out your data. And this is a perfect example of how to lay it out. So it goes from broader to narrower in focus, right? So this is the detail level, a summary by category, summary by the resort name, okay? So we're only going to chart Cass Lake and Baudette. So we're selecting A5 through D28. So it starts the same way. We're not going to do Breezy Point and Walker. We're just going to do it comparing the two properties. So we're inserting, and then we want to find a hierarchical chart. Hierarchical, so let's see if we can find it. That's a surface. It's here somewhere. Probably, there it is, this one right here. We're going to click the arrow and we're going to pick a sunburst. Click. And then we're going to move it to its own so we can actually see it. It's going to be in its own chart. And it's going to be called sunburst. Oops. All right, so really kind of cool if we look at this. So if we're comparing in the inner ring, Cass Lake to Baudette, so you can see the overall income revenue is bigger for Baudette, right? Because it's not sliced right down the middle. So then within Baudette, we can look at rental, excursion, spa, and we can see rental and excursions are pretty close. And then if we break it down any further, rental, July looks like the big month, right? And then August is pretty close. They look pretty close. And then September smaller, right? So do you see how you can read this? So if we look at Cass Lake, it's not the same. Look at the boutique purchases for Cass Lake compared to the boutique for Baudette, right? Much bigger part of the ring than this one. And then if you look, August and July were big months for boutiques, and then it really fell off, right? So that's how you can read that chart. It's really cool to do this hierarchical data. So we're going to click on the chart title, triple click, and we're going to put third quarter revenue, enter, Cass Lake and Baudette. Oops, I didn't do a B. Capital B. All right. Deselect it. All right, we want to select that again, and then we're going to change it to 16. And deselect it. So I think we're done with that chart. It's kind of cool. I really like that. I think, you know, the thing is you have to have your data organized well in order for that to work so smoothly. All right, let's go back to Cass Lake. And what we're going to do here is put in spark lines. So the first thing we need to do is to insert a new column. So remember, you insert a column to the left of where you're at. So I'm going to be on column H because I want a new column between G and H. I'm going to right click, insert. It puts a new column in between G and H. So H is now the new column, and what was H is now I. So we're going to set up our spark lines. We're going to select the range of B5 through G8. So we're doing all this data. So what we're going to do here is there are going to be little charts within this cell that's going to track this data across. That's what the spark lines are going to do. So we're going to select insert and find spark lines. It's a group, so you can do a line, a column, or a win-loss. We're going to do a column. So the data range should be already selected because we pre-selected it, and then the location is where do you want the spark lines to be, the spark chart. So we're going to select H5 through H8 and OK. So now what we have are little boxes, little columns that chart this data in this cell, right? So one of the things about it, it's kind of hard to read because the rows are very small. And then we also want to change the color just because we want to. So while we're on here, now we have a sparkline tool, right? So let's pick the green accent 6, darker 25. So it's this one right here. Changes our little boxes, our little columns to the green. And then we want to go home, come over here to format, and we want to change the row height to, to 30. And it makes those 4 rows that contain the spark lines deeper, and then the columns are much easier to read. So like here you can see very low, went up, down, up, down for shop purchases. Rentals, very low, went up a little bit, up, down, and then really back up. So July was bigger, went down in August, and back in September. So if I was looking at this, I'd think, why are we losing people in August? Why can't I want to get that little bar? I want it to go up, right? Instead of having that down. Okay, so we want to format column H. So what's H, format, column width, we're going to make that 16 so it's wider and you can really see those. I'm going to go ahead and save it, and we're done with Excel Chapter 3, and we're done with all the Excels that we're going to cover. So the next thing would be your test. All right, guys, thanks.